Hey there, my friends. Amy here with Healthy Me, Healthy We. I have something super awesome that I am really excited to share with you today. I have Scott Sherman here with me. Thank you so much for joining me on this interview. Scott is a financial coach. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure.
And your passion.
Yeah. So financial coaching is different from financial advising or tax planning, things like that. What I do is I help people with their budget. I help them align their values and their spending, and I help them figure out how to communicate with their spouse, usually a lot better around money. Money is one of those things that we often will get into arguments about because we're not necessarily using the same language or have the same ideals around what we're doing with it. And so a lot of the the issues that come up aren't necessarily numbers related. Their behavior, their situational, their language, those sorts of things. So as a financial coach, I help people get a handle on that so that they can get ahead and start moving in the direction they want to move with their money.
Well, that's so awesome, because as that relates to our health, obviously then if they're frustrated with their spouse or if there's miscommunication, then not only is their personal health affected, but their relationships, and
Right.
it just causes this slew of problems if their financial health is not in place. And I like how you said that it needs to align with what their actions need to align with what they believe, and actually being able to put in practice something that's more sustainable, something that helps them grow rather than just tread water, kind
Right.
of just try and survive, which I feel like so many people are nowadays. We're just trying to stay afloat, when really what we want to do is create this upward movement towards getting out of the water and just being able to see everything from kind of 30,000 foot view.
Yeah, and that's tough. It's something that people often don't get an opportunity to really dive into because they're, like you said, they're so focused on just paying the bills, just staying ahead, just living in the moment and getting through that day or that month. They don't have sort of the bandwidth to back up and say, okay, big picture, what are we doing here? And how can we do more of what we want to do and less of what we're doing that we don't?
Big picture, that's really important. So what is a big truth about health in the financial world? Just if you could pick one thing, what is one thing that you think that a piece of the puzzle that people are missing today?
So I think one of the things, and you touched on it a little bit, is that financial health is really a foundational segment of health. It affects overall health. It affects your mental health. It affects your sleep. It affects your stress level. It affects your relationships. It affects your ability to show up in your best form wherever you are, whether that's at work, at home, out doing things. Financial wellness is a core thing, and probably a lot of people understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The pyramid of, well, we have to fill the bottom layer of the pyramid so that we can move up and do the more intellectual things that are more self-fulfilling. But you can't do that without food and water and shelter and safety and all those good things. And I feel really financial health is on that bottom section because it equates to food, it equates to shelter, it equates to safety. If you don't have good financial health, all of those things are at risk, and it makes it awfully difficult to focus on those next layers up because you're just trying to fulfill those basic needs, and those basic needs are all fulfilled largely through some sort of a financial need. So
true. And being able to fulfill our own needs and then reaching out and helping fulfill others' needs, like that contribution really adds to the value of our financial health, and maybe the quality of our financial health. My clients are working towards removing scarcity in their life as they're watching this video, hopefully, and learning from how important financial health is in their life. And we talk a lot about triggers and anchors. And triggers are the things that, as I believe you're familiar with, triggers and anchors, and how triggers set off, a habit in motion, and anchors kind of solidify that habit. And so if there was something that you could share with these people today watching this video that they could do today, that they could add or begin doing today to improve their financial health, what would you tell them to do?
Sure. So I believe that the most important thing to have is awareness. So many people say, well, I want to start, budgeting, or I want to start, getting out of debt. And for the most part, those are great, but you can't do that without knowing where you're at today, right? And so having an awareness by tracking your spending, using something like Mint, which is a free program that you can connect all of your bank accounts and your credit cards and all those things to, and see where your money is going every month. Or YNAB, you need a budget, is another good one. Those things will raise into your consciousness some of the problems that are causing bigger issues for you that you may not realize. And this is one of the things that people don't often realize is a lot of the money that you're, quote unquote, wasting is not necessarily on stuff that you enjoy. The stuff that you enjoy, the stuff that means something to you, you probably know how much you're spending on it. And you probably have a good idea of where that's coming from. It's the stuff that you don't care about that is probably sucking an untold amount of money out of your bank account because you're not even paying attention to it. It doesn't matter. So it's just, it's $5 here, it's $10 there, it's $50 for this. You do that enough times during the month, and pretty soon you're at $300 or $400, and you didn't even know where that $400 went. You look around and you say, well, I should have more money than this. And you think about all the things that you spent money on, and you don't think about the little purchases that didn't mean anything to you, right? It was done, it's gone, it's out of mind. Oftentimes that awareness has to come through the process of saying, what am I doing? So, it's sort of like dieting, right? You got to track your in and out. If you're not tracking what you're eating, it's really hard to know whether you're overeating or under exercising or eating the wrong things, or it's the same thing with finances. You have to figure out where's everything going. So I feel like that is a key. Oftentimes what people will do is they'll look at their budget, well, not their budget, they'll look at how much money is coming in, and they'll say, I should have more to show for this amount of money, right? And that's often what I hear people say.
Possessions equates amount of money as well.
And it's that, or it's just the feeling that you have enough, right? And possessions can be one of those things. I think that that's a dangerous way to play the game, because you can always buy more stuff, and somebody else will always have more than you.
Very good point.
It's not about whether you have more stuff. It's really about, do you have the right stuff that makes you happy? And some of that stuff might be investments that you're not going to touch for 30 years. Some of that stuff might be a rental property that brings you some excess income that's going to be part of your long-term strategy. Some of that stuff builds security rather than clutter.
Possessive, right.
And so I feel like when people know what they have going out, when they start to look at that differently, to remove scarcity, they can start to say, look, all this is coming in, where do I want it to go? In a perfect world, if I were to start over, where do I want it to go? And by doing that, you can often see that there's plenty of money there. You're just mismanaging it. You just need help, shifting what you're spending on to the priorities that you say you have. And that's really where the work begins.
That's awesome. I was just listening to a podcast or a TED Talk. Those seem to be my favorite things nowadays. By Jason Campbell, who I believe he's another financial person who has written a few books, and does financial coaching as well. And something that you said made me think of what I had heard from him was, he said, whatever you love, the things that you love to do, or the things that you love, spend whatever you want to, like, spend it extravagantly, is what he said, on the things that you love. And what's the word I'm looking for? And then he said, and the things that you don't love, like those $3 coffees from Starbucks or whatever, that just, they just kind of get you through the day. He said, mercilessly hold on to those, weed those out, with a vengeance.
Yes.
To get rid of all the things that don't matter in your life, and then you can spend all that you want to on the things that you love, the things that really matter to you. So that's awesome. And so with one thing, so awareness, then you would say start to add awareness to where they're spending, and stop spending where it doesn't matter and start spending where it does matter.
That's gonna, awareness is key. If you don't have the awareness, you can't do anything else.
Okay.
Or everything else that you do is going to be uninformed, basically.
It's going to be more of a reaction rather than an intention.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. So something that Tony Robbins in his workshops and his books discusses was that patterns, he sees patterns in people's lives that we need to change. So to change our patterns in our finances, besides, you've mentioned awareness, now this is the first step in our pattern. What's one thing that you would ask people to, and I believe that that's adding to that pattern. What's one thing that you would ask people to remove to create a better pattern or a better routine for their spending and their financial health?
First off, people need to stop trying to be everybody else. We look around and we see what our friends, what our neighbors, what our coworkers are doing, what they have, and we think that that's what we're supposed to do oftentimes,
Comparison is the thief of joy.
It is. But it's also this notion that this idea that we do things that people like us do. And this is something that has been talked about. Seth Godin talks about this in his marketing book. The goal of marketing is to convince us that people like us do things like this. And so when we look around, and people like us is a dangerous sort of thought, right? Because in your neighborhood, people like you are the people in your neighborhood. At work, people like you are the people at work. And if you're constantly comparing yourself to all of these different groups, really people like you can be anybody. So the best thing you can do is remove this idea that people like you are everybody else and decide who you are and be that person. And that may mean that you're different than your neighbors, that you're different than your coworkers, that you're different than your family members, that you can rewrite whatever story that is to say, you know what, this is what I care about, this is what's important to me. And when you stop comparing yourself to others and going on, the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter cycle and seeing what everybody else is doing and has and all the great things, you're looking at these highlight reels and you're comparing your everyday to these highlight reels, and you're like, well, I wish I had that. I should go get that. If only I did this. If only I did that. It's not about that. It's really about understanding what would make you happy and running toward that, not trying to figure out what makes everybody else happy, because you don't know what they're going through. A lot of times you look at people, they look like they're very successful. They're broke. They're completely broke. They're up to here in credit card debt. They go home and they're stressed out and they're struggling, but they've got a nice car, they've got nice furniture, they've got all these things, and they don't know how to pay for it. And if you read something like The Millionaire Next Door, which looks at I think it was hundreds of millionaires, at least maybe thousands, they're regular people, right? They're people who don't have the fanciest stuff. They don't spend the most, lavishly on things. They have some nice things. Most of what they have is modest, and you wouldn't be able to look at them and say, oh, that's a millionaire, because they don't flaunt it. They just have it. And it's usually the people who are out flaunting it who don't have it. And so we need to reprogram ourselves in terms of what we think success is. That's
really great. Joe Polish, who is the owner, the director of Genius Network, interviewed a financial business coach, and he said that when he talked to Warren Buffett said, you make one stupid financial choice in one area, you'll make one, one small financial choice affects big financial choices. So it's how you do one thing is how you do everything, which means you start to build these patterns in your financial health. and your physical health, or you start in your physical health and your financial health will follow, or vice versa, where, you know,
Right.
wherever people make that start. That's great advice. So tell us then, your business is Liveway Financial Coaching. Tell us how you can serve these people better. How can they get a hold of you if they're interested in your coaching?
Sure. So yeah, Live Your Way Financial Coaching, liveyourwayfc.com is my website. What I do is I do a free 20-minute call with everybody to find out whether I can even help you, whether your situation is right, and whether you feel like financial coaching is what you need. Financial coaching is really about working with people to determine the best path forward for them. Everybody's needs are different, everybody's goals are different, everybody's issues are different. I don't go in and say, okay, this is what you're going to do because this is what everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
It's, what have you tried? What kind of works for you in other ways? What are we trying to do? And how do we start to move in that direction, right? It's got to be, there is no quick fix. If there were a quick fix, you'd get a book and it'd be done, right? What I'm going to teach people oftentimes is not anything earth-shattering. It's stuff you can find with a good Google search, right? But it's the accountability, it's putting it in the right order, it's deciding how to reframe things and how to look at things differently. That takes a little more effort than just a Google search. And so that's what I do with people, is help them figure that out. So yeah, people can get in touch with me, free 20-minute call. We'll go through things then, and if they want to move forward, then we can talk about what that looks like. And I try to make it affordable, and I try to save people more money than it costs to hire me, as quickly as possible. My goal is not to have people work with me forever. I want to get them to a place where they're happier, they're doing this more on their own, and they can move forward and have those gains through the rest of their life.
That's fantastic. And the free 20-minute call, I mean, that's highly valuable to help try and just even put one step in place for them to see,
yes,
okay, this is the strategy I see that you need with all that you've told me to build sustainable financial habits over time.
Yep.
So that's
and like you said, that you need a pattern interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And the pattern interrupt for people who are struggling is to reach out and make that first move to say, I'm going to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, we'll see where it goes. But that's the first thing you need to do, is just say, hey, if I'm thinking about this, if this is something that's bothering me, I have to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
That free 20-minute call might be the thing that gets you started interrupting the patterns you have that are not working for you, and start to build new ones that are.
That's awesome. That's especially valuable with people who have already invested in their health, and they can see the benefits of investing in themselves to get that return. They're going to do the same thing when they invest in having you hold them accountable and helping them build a sustainable strategy over time. They're going to get far more in return
right.
than they will have spent on what we say spending on others is really just spending on ourselves and what we get in return for it. So that's awesome. Okay, so I have one more question for you. It's a truth bomb question. So how do you feel, and we're all human, I have my occasional splurge, or my occasional stressful day where I find myself in the kitchen snacking more than I'd like to.
Right.
Do you feel like in this position as a financial coach, do you feel like you have good balance in this area and in your health, and what do you feel like has helped you create that balance?
Balance is a tricky thing, right? Because different seasons of our lives, different times of the year, they require different balance. It's very hard to be totally equal in all things, right?
For sure.
So, for a long time, I haven't always done financial coaching. It's something I've started within the past year and a half, really focusing on more. And that came because the work that I was doing, I didn't feel that balance. I was spending too much time going to work and doing work and coming home from work that, I looked around at